Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
8:07 on O'Connor and Company. It's our big fourth hour here on our morning extravaganza. Thanks for joining us. Coming up in 30 minutes, we're going to speak with Jim Jordan, chairman of the Judiciary Committee. And when I say we, I mean me, Larry O'Connor, and she, Cassie Smedley. Good morning, Cassie. It's been a delight all morning.
Good morning. I'm just in the middle of the morning dance.
I know. We do love our Sir Duke here, Stevie Wonder. It's an FCC regulation. A lot of people don't know that. You got to play Stevie Wonder at 8 a.m. Chairman Brendan Carr of the FCC knows that better than anyone. He joins us now. See, we're in compliance, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, you're all good. So good to be with you again.
Listen, a lot of things I want to get to, but first, because of the disaster in Texas with the flash flooding and the horrible human tragedy, and I think a lot of us take for granted that the phone's going to be there, whether it's a mobile phone or a landline phone, when you need it most. Can you give us an update on how our communications infrastructure functioned during this disaster for first responders and for victims?
Yeah, thanks so much. Great to be with you. I mean, look, first of all, our hearts go out to the families that are just hearing the most awful news possible out there in Texas. And obviously, you know, I want to express my thanks to the U.S. Coast Guard, to Secretary Noem. I mean, obviously there's that great story now of Scott Ruskin, the Coast Guard swimmer who was on his very first mission ever and, you know, saved so many kids and just a hero. You know, from the FCC perspective, we're always monitoring communications issues in natural disasters. We didn't see any significant widespread disruption from this one. Obviously, there were some issues here and there, and we're continuing to look at that. But we do a lot to make sure we have our emergency alert system that's up and running so we can get these alerts out. We actually just held a hurricane resiliency roundtable at the FCC yesterday to make sure that we're ready for disasters like these.
That's great to hear, and thank you for giving us an update on that. Now, I know late last week you delivered a speech in Sioux Falls, South Dakota about what you're calling the Build America agenda, and it has to do with finally getting a high-speed infrastructure built in this country. I feel like I've been hearing this since, 2010. Barack Obama was talking about this. Joe Biden, apparently, I remember in one of his giant spending bills, unleashed a huge amount of billions of dollars. But we still have huge gaps in high-speed internet in this country, in rural areas in particular. Why is that? The money has been there. Have they just been focusing on outdated technology?
Well, you're right. You'll probably recall back a year or two ago, President Biden and Vice President Harris were put in charge of a $42 billion internet infrastructure initiative. It was their signature effort to get millions and millions of Americans connected to the internet, including in rural communities. And the upshot of that was after 1,000+ days, they had 0 people connected. There wasn't a single shovel's worth of dirt that was even turned. And what our Build America agenda does is it looks to turn that around. And all of this is thanks to President Trump. You know, he's come in and said that, we are going to end business as usual. We're finally going to get construction projects going. And the One Big Beautiful Bill that passed just last week gives a real shot in the arm to this effort because it allows the FCC to use airwaves spectrum to bring people across the digital divide as well. So I'm really excited about this agenda that's, picks up on themes across the Trump administration.
By the way, I believe our newly elected Congresswoman, April McClain Delaney here in Maryland, she was the point person there for the administration as well on that failed mission to finally get this done. Can you shed some light? I mean, I read somewhere that a lot of these businesses that are being charged with building this infrastructure, they're still dealing with like copper wire technology that is sort of outdated for high-speed internet. Is that right?
Yeah, there's a lot that's going on. So what our Build America agenda does is finally sort of cut through a lot of this red tape. So one is we've actually had rules on the books at the FCC that requires providers to keep investing and maintaining billions of dollars into old copper line networks, even when they want to move that capital over to new high-speed networks, including fiber. And so we're giving them permission for the first time to do that much more swiftly and efficiently. That's a big piece of it. Another piece is the space economy. We're getting all sorts of new services delivered directly from satellites, in-home broadband delivered at high speeds from space. There's a new technology called direct-to-cell, which lets your cell phone connect directly to a satellite, so skipping the terrestrial cell tower. So there's a lot of hope out there, but the real key is we have to get the government out of the way in terms of all the red tape that's been slowing down these builds up to now.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask is what is an ideal or a realistic timeline for when this can get done? Because like Larry said, we've been hearing about this for the better part of a decade. Now, because of the big, beautiful bill, you've said you've got kind of what you need to get going. What do you see as a timeline for when people can really expect to see this in their communities?
Yeah, we're moving pretty quickly. So one thing that's taking place is with respect to that $42 billion program that we spoke about earlier, Commerce Secretary Lutnick has been doing great work reorienting that program. Over the next month or so, that program is going to be completely reset. And then soon after that, providers should be able to start building pursuant to that. So you'll see some new builds going under that program thanks to Secretary Lutnick pretty soon here. At the FCC, we're moving quickly already to try to free up these airways, which is, again, a complement to the wired infrastructure, to have wireless infrastructure. And we're also moving on a deregulatory schedule right now. In fact, this month we're voting to delete a bunch of rules and regulations that have been on our books for too long, including, believe it or not, rules that regulate telegraph service and the closure of telephone booths. So, we have all these, pages in our Code of Federal Regulations that ultimately just slow things down. So we're getting rid of that as well.
That's great to hear. I don't know if you saw this. Ezra Klein, of all people, he's a liberal Democrat, big government proponent. He used to be a columnist of the Washington Post. Now he's at the New York Times. He wrote a book about the inefficiencies in the federal government. He had an interview with Jon Stewart where he was sort of walking through the entire process that you have to go through the Build Back Better plan that Biden promoted. To get a contract to be able to build this broadband access for rural and underserved communities. And Jon Stewart was left speechless. He could not believe the hurdles and the hoops and the morass and the ridiculous regulations just to get one of these contracts done. Have you been able to focus on, I guess what I'm asking is, will you make Ezra Klein happy, Commissioner Carr?
Well, we aim to make everybody happy, but I think so, and he's exactly right. When you look at these programs that the Democrats stood up, again, good, big, lofty goal, ending the digital divide, but it foundered on the fact that they added all of these progressive policy goals to it. So you had rate regulation, you had DEI requirements, you had green requirements, so you had to have EV bulldozers or something to do this type of construction work. It just made no sense at all. And so, they lost the forest for the trees, and we're doing the exact opposite. We're just focusing on, quickly, efficiently trying to connect people. We're getting rid of all these DEI obligations, and that's the right way to finally bridge the digital divide in this country. And I'm optimistic that, we're going to get the job done with President Trump and the one big beautiful bill. Just
so people understand, because they're going to hear you say DEI and they're going to say, what? That has to do with if you're a company and you're trying to participate in actually fixing some of our issues here and helping to provide internet and broadband and high speed access to these areas. You've got to fill out form after form after form to make sure that you've got the right diversity hires and that your ownership is racially appropriate. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, when you're bidding for these contracts that were set up during the Biden administration, you would get points for how diverse your workforce would be. You would get points for hiring people that were what they describe as justice impacted individuals, which I guess is formerly incarcerated or other people. And so they didn't focus on how do we get the most qualified people, the people that can get this job done right now. They were using it as a program to advance issues that had nothing to do with just getting families across the digital divide.
Unbelievable. Well, listen, listen, whenever there is a conservative who is sort of steering the FCC, we always know that the human tragedy is right around the corner. Your predecessor, Ajit Pai, of course, is responsible, I believe, for the murder of tens of millions because of net neutrality. So we're holding our breath and hoping that you're able to navigate these rough waters ahead, Brenda Carr.
Yeah, you're exactly right. There's a lot of shots that are taken at officials that are running these agencies. But the good news is if you died from net neutrality, you do not have to worry about dying from the one big beautiful bill. So that's a good thing.
See? Exactly. Thank God. There is some relief. Thank you, Brenda Carr. Great talking with you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it.
All right. Good to be with you guys. Appreciate it. Thanks.
It is 8:15.